All right. Well, if you are catching us afterwards on the replay, this is just a simple 20-second lead in. Let some ads play, do some things like that. Otherwise, if it's Thursday night, that means it's time for the CarrGuy and SIXFAN show here at 7 p.m. Central Time on my channel this week. I'm straight SIXFAN. I am SIXFAN of the CarrGuy and SIXFAN show, which makes this handsome fellow over this direction.
Maybe it's the other direction too. I don't know. It's me. It's Jason. I'm the CarrGuy of the CarrGuy and SIXFAN show. Thank you, folks, for taking some time out of your week to be entertained, give you something to laugh at, give you something to talk about on the CarrGuy and SIXFAN show, which is powered by the Get Out and Drive podcast. We want to make sure that we add that in there because they support us and they help us move forward with the CarrGuy and SIXFAN show. It's a great opportunity to let you guys know that the National Get Out and Drive Day is happening on October the 2nd. If you're not registered with Get Out and Drive Day, make sure you head over to www.getoutanddrive.com and register. And Joanne will make sure she sends you out an official 2022 National Get Out and Drive Day sticker that you can stick on your car. Get out and drive, and make sure you're taking pictures or video. Hashtag National Get Out and Drive Day.
And I think Jason said it well, whether you're here to be entertained or not. That might be a little too strong of a word, but at least you're maybe here to laugh at us. Buckle in, get ready, because this is just a legacy episode, so it's just going to be the two of us. It's like old times, and we've got a number of car topics that we want to lob out there, and I think it's kind of a test drive of sorts, a new format, and we're going to see how this goes. But before we do so, Jason, do you want to take a brief moment and kind of call out who's been in the chat so far?
Absolutely. So as usual, Everything is Broken Garage is usually the first guy in the chat asking how everybody's doing. But Melissa Nunez, our resident moderator, has been in there sharing some links for my channel, the Get Out and Drive channel, your Instagram, my Instagram, all this good stuff. So thank you, Melissa, for being there and doing that. We've also got Mopar Den. Don English is in the house. Foxton Fix It. We've also got Will's Wheels. And I think I saw Eric in there, 815 LSX swaps. And we see some people trickling in. Gary Mathis, Get Out and Drive, is in there too. Mexican Spec, welcome back. It's been a while since we've seen him in the chat. Papillon Cycles, thank you guys for joining us for the CarrGuy and SIXFAN show, powered
by the Get Out and Drive podcast.
There you go.
All right, so I guess we'll lay out the ground rules for tonight, how we think it might go. And maybe it ends up in a train wreck. You never know, but that's why you tune in, is to see it live, watch it happen live. And so for those sports fans out there here in the States, if you watch ESPN at any sort of time and have caught the show, pardon the interruption, we're going to hijack their format a little bit. We've got a number of car topics we want to throw out. And so we'll throw it out to, I'll ask a question to Jason. Jason will get basically like 3 minutes to respond. He'll do his best to wrap up all of his opinions in 3 minutes, and we'll time it and we'll bookend it. And then the person who asked the question maybe has a little bit of time to refute that or say something different or add to or whatever. And then we'll just kind of go back and forth. So start with you, Jason. I recall in my youth, thinking back to kind of just getting into cars, the 5.0 Mustang was kind of right at its peak. And I remember when the 94, or I guess it probably would have been the 96 Mustang rolled out. 94 was the body style change, but they kept the 5.0 for 2 years. I remember reading Ford was going to decrease displacement to 4.6 liters and how deflating that was. But it was because the new 4.6 liter, I say new, it'd been around a couple of years. It's the single overhead cam mod motor of sorts they tried to start throwing in every car became kind of a new move. And so I guess what I'll ask you is, the 4.6 liter mod motor the most misunderstood American V8?
Well, I would have to say I think that it is. And before these last 2 weeks that I bought this 97 Lincoln Town Car, 97 was the second year for the mod motor in these Panther platforms. It was the second year for the mod motor in just about anything Ford. They were becoming more and more popular, and people just kind of looked at it as, oh no, overhead valves. smaller displacement. I even think they were detuned for those first couple years compared to the 5.0. But as we kind of moved into it, it just started becoming mainstay. The Mustangs with that new mod motor still sounded good when they were throaty. When you rev out, into fourth and fifth gear and you're screaming down the road. I just think that people for the longest time, including myself, because I've never been a Ford guy, but people for the longest time just kind of chalked it up as another random run-of-the-mill V8 engine. Its sister engine, if you call it the 5.3 or 5.4, was like a piece of junk. And I think that if you go over and you listen to a lot of different mechanics and their opinion on it, they'll always come back to the 4.6 saying how bulletproof it was, how you could get extended mileage out of them with proper maintenance, which even with the 5.4s, you couldn't do that. Same premise, same basic platform on the modular engine. But at the end of the day, as I tear into this 4.6 on my 97 Lincoln Town Car, I'm realizing just how similar of a small block this thing is. Even with dual overhead valves, I think we're getting to the point where, the more you learn about them, the easier they are to work on. And like I said, I've never torn too much apart in the 4.6 or in the overhead valve, but at the end of the day, I'm very, very happy and very pleased with it.
Well, Jason, good job. You did that in under 3 minutes. And I guess the only thing I'd add to that is I kind of some similarities. The overhead valve game, that 2.3 liter Lima motor was this iconic thing that you couldn't kill. Ford made for a number of years, and I think as time played out, it showed the same thing as you were talking about. It became one of the most durable motors of almost all time, and maybe it's arguably the most durable overhead cam V8. I don't know. It's hard to say, but it's become over time. I think it's become a pretty respectable engine.
And I know, and there's a couple of points that I probably should have touched on too. Is there's probably two of the biggest common things that happen to these motors, but both of them are due to neglect and not using regular maintenance. One is blowing timing chains, like mine did. But the second one is spark plugs, blowing spark plugs. So if you're not changing your spark plugs on a regular basis, the dissimilar metals with the spark plug compared to the aluminum head, corrosion gets in there. The corrosion makes the aluminum weak, and then all of a sudden, pop goes the spark plug, and you're getting, having to put Healy coils and make those things, rejuvenate them with this new thing. So yeah, regular maintenance plays big on any engine, but you know what? Even with lackluster maintenance on these engines, you can get 300,000-400,000 miles out of them pretty quick.
All right. Well, what do you got for me, Jason?
Well, one of the things that we've all been going through over the last couple of years is dealing with supply chain issues, and again, one of the biggest and probably hardest hit manufacturers with this seems to have been Ford. One of the articles that I pulled off of Motor Trend is that thousands of unfinished Ford trucks are filling up Kentucky Speedway. So Kentucky Speedway being close to one of their plants where they're building and assembling these Ford F-150s. And they're predicting that this supply chain issue with these microchips or whatever, the semiconductors, are going to be into possibly 2024. What's your take on the supply chain issue, and will we really ever see the end of it?
Yeah, so this one resonates with me quite a bit, being in the construction and design industry that I'm in, and to watch so many construction projects in the last. I mean, I think just the onset of COVID's really what sparked it, and then Amazon started buying all of these, basically every roof truss that existed, steel joists that exist. It became very hard to deliver a product on time. People oftentimes didn't even care about budget anymore through these last 24 months. And so when I parallel that to what's going on in Kentucky with Ford, the other part of me thinks about there's like a sequence in which you put a building together. And so I feel like even though these cars or these trucks might be like 98% done and they're just missing the semiconductor. I still feel like for Ford, I put myself in Ford's shoes and I think, how can you stand by? I think there's something to be said about if it's not 100% done, how can you put a warranty on something? How can you stand behind a product? Because it didn't all necessarily go together in the right order, the right fashion, in the right time frame. We've all seen houses, or Jason, you could probably relate to this with your camper, right? Like when nobody lives in it for that, when you have to shut it down for the season and reopen it in the spring, like dust still finds a way to get into this camper. Like all these things, like just people not living in it. And that's what I think about these trucks is like, yeah, on paper, they're brand new. They're 0 miles, but how can you as a manufacturer like stand behind and feel good about eventually selling that vehicle and feeling good that it's all going to work?
Well, you did pretty good. You're down to about 1 minute and 20 seconds here. So I guess you're exactly right. And in fact, I was talking to somebody about this just the other day. When it comes to something being brand new, at what point is it no longer brand new? At what point do certain aspects of brand new take away from the newness? So you go and you build this truck, it's brand new, but yet it's been sitting somewhere in a field or on some asphalt for 1.5 years. They still have to give you a warranty. They still have to do this, but what's the incentive to buy that one versus the new one that might already be on the lot? You know what I mean? So I think there's a problem with priority. They should never have started building 2023 trucks until the 2022 ones were fixed. And I see that Fox Can Fix It made a comment that those trucks aren't there anymore at the Kansas Speedway. No, I don't believe they are. I do believe they've moved them and they've started shipping them out to the dealers unfinished. And that seems to be a lot of the cases that we're dealing with is that, we're sending you this vehicle. You're going to have to pay for it. You're going to finance it. You're going to have to do whatever you need to do to get into it. But this certain aspect of your infotainment may or may not work, or this certain aspect of your whatever may not work until we get this semiconductor. Oh, look at that. So
the Canadian government knows you're talking about semiconductors.
They know we're talking about semiconductors and the exchange on the time. We just ended up the time really quick on the third minute there. So,
well, the only thing I'll just briefly add to that, I guess, is maybe Ford should offer, instead of like a crate motor program, like just sell you an empty shell of a truck and you get to put whatever you want in it. Maybe that's the ticket. But we talked about Kentucky. These were all at Kentucky Speedway. Well, the state just to the south of them, Tennessee, is where recently somebody set a brand new record for the fastest mile in reverse at 54 miles an hour. And I think it was a C5 Corvette. Jason, I ask of you, what would ever possess anybody, anywhere, anytime to try to go 54 miles an hour in reverse?
Well, I think the only reason that comes to mind quickly when I first read that article was, are you really not loving your transmission these days? Because transmissions in reverse are not meant to go 54 miles an hour backwards. They're meant to back out of your driveway slowly. Granted, if you're doing police chases and stuff like that, yeah, it might come in handy. But if you're not breaking the law and you're not breaking the rules, I think this was purely a stunt for the record. I think that it was purposely done. Obviously, you're not going to have a bunch of people standing around there trying to clock you going in reverse unless you're doing it for that specific reason. I was actually quite surprised to find out that, as quick as 54 miles an hour is, that would wind out a Corvette, at the end of the day. So I like to look at that and say, challenge accepted. Are there other vehicles that can do 54 miles an hour backwards quicker? Yugos might be able to. I mean, they can't do. What are you talking? They can't do 54 forward.
I'm just saying that might be the trick.
But I think that, seeing that article tells me that might set the precedent for other manufacturers or other vehicles to sit there and play around with this record, see if it can be broke, see if there's other vehicles out there that can do this in reverse. I go back to the day, and I think some of the Japanese vehicles, maybe Toyotas, maybe Hondas, still do it. But when you put it in reverse, you get that really weird, like whirring noise. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes. So as driving a Toyota, yes.
Yeah. So there you go.
Stick your
I think that those things, that must be a deterrent. The louder the whir gets, there must be a tick or a time bomb waiting to go off there when you hit a certain speed limit. But I think it'd be interesting, and I would actually encourage anybody out there watching this right now that if you want to try and break that 54-mile-an-hour reverse record, contact Guinness, get some cameras out there, see what you can do, entertain us all, because I would love to see that show.
2 minutes right on the dot there, Jason. The one thing when I read the article, I thought, well, I didn't really read the article, just kind of breezed through it. But this guy, I should have wrote down his name, but he has a YouTube channel, and his YouTube channel has a bunch of these, how fast can I go in reverse? But he was quoted as saying something like, well, one day I had to back up my Miata for quite some time, and I got it up to 34 miles. I'm like, if you had to put it in reverse for that long, and you had, like, surely you could have turned the car around at any, like, whatever distance you needed to do that. Like, nobody needs to back a car up for that long. That's kind of where I lean.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, could you have turned it around and gone forward quicker in the same, in a shorter period of time? I think so. I really do. I want to jump into the next topic of discussion, and that is an article coming from driving.ca, and it talks about U.S. Safety Board calls to mandate tech in vehicles to keep people from driving drunk. This is something where the government is trying to step into automobile safety to help curb the driving under the influence. Grant, what do you think about this whole government stepping into that play? Is it a space that they need to be, or should they be backing off?
Yeah, I thought it was funny that you sent that one my way, because just yesterday on my drive home, there was a talk radio here locally that basically found the similar article, and they were talking about it. And their point, which I think I agree with, is that, I mean, I think we all, like Jason and I have thrown down some brewskis here on the CarRguy and SIXFAN show, so we might not be part of this demographic, but I think we all know somebody who just doesn't drink alcohol, and it just seems like you're casting a really wide net for what reason, and it seems really dumb to put these, basically these breathalyzer things where if you had a DUI, yeah, you had to install one in your car, so it won't turn your car on, if you shouldn't be driving, kind of a thing. They serve a purpose, but I think it's that's definitely I don't know, really don't have a lot of hope in government officials if they really think this, of all the big issues out there, if this is one that everybody needs in a new car. Just seems dumb.
Well, I did kind of skim through the article a little bit. One of the points that was made was, are you infringing on the rights of those who A, don't drink, or who A or B choose not to drink and then drive? Like, why do these people have to, succumb to this device just to drive their car? Are their rights potentially, being infringed upon there, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I leave that up to the individual, I guess, at that point. But I think that would be super annoying to me if I was in those shoes, and I just, like, why? I just want to just turn the car on and go. I don't know. It does seem stupid.
Well, and again, not to get too in depth to this and turn it into a political debate, but I think it just kind of borders along the same line, and I don't know where everybody feels, and I really don't care to start this debate here tonight, but it kind of talks about the whole gun issue too. Yeah, people use guns for the wrong reasons. People get into cars and they use cars for the wrong reasons. Are we banning cars? No. We're just trying to input devices that make them a little bit safer, not just for the driver, but for everyone else. So yeah, I get where they're going with that. I'm not sure I totally agree, but I do see the benefit of it in those instances. There's a lot of people that die behind the wheel due to drunk drivers, and that might be one way to curb that at the end of the day. So
I think maybe we could all agree on that, like that no matter where you stand on it, there is a benefit.
For sure.
So I think you said that well. So speaking of automotive manufacturers, well, our friends over at Stellantis, you say Stiletto, I say Stellantis. I don't know. Or Dodge. They, of course, as we all know, with the whole trend of the automotive industry and the trend of the last 5 episodes of the CarRguy and SIXFAN show, they're moving towards electric vehicles. But Dodge, with their performance rebirth recently, with all the Hemis and all the fun packages, the Scat Packs, the Hellcats, the Red Eye Demon, like all this cool. But I think Dodge always got a little carried away at times with the naming. Like it seems like they kept just plugging one more name in front of every like package. It's now the Red Eye Hellcat Angel Mist Demon Chaser Scat Pack edition, you know. So anyway, I get to all this to say this 2023 batch of Chargers and Challengers, they're calling the Last Call edition. And so, Jason, did they get the name right this time?
I don't think that they did. I think that there's, Dodge for years. I mean, let's not just narrow it to Dodge. The big three manufacturers, when it comes to naming muscle cars, seem to have done a very good job historically. At the time, they might not have been cool names, but historically, we look back, we have Nova, Chevelle, Mustang, and then you come to the Dodge, you got Dart and you got CUDA and all this stuff. And I get that certain things were package based. So you had the Demon and the Duster and the 446 pack, and you had the whatever types of names you had with those Chrysler. And I get that they're coming to the end of an era with the modern day muscle car. I just think that if you're going to go through that whole, closing the doors on horsepower, as we know it, I guess I shouldn't say horsepower, because electric motors and stuff like that are going to be kind of overtaking the horsepower scene here in the near future. But to kind of close that door on gasoline powered horsepower cars, I think that at the end of the day, we want to sit back and say, okay, 20 years from now, we're going to look back and we're going to see this car. And are we going to look at it as the last call? We will, because that's what they've called it. But how, it's less cool than saying, okay, I bought the last AAR CUDA, as you typed in the chat there, or I bought the last Boss 302 Mustang, or like, I just think they could have done something a little bit cooler. Are these cars going to be cool? Absolutely. They've got custom paint. They've got custom decals. They're going to be trimmed out, specced out very, very nicely. But if you're going to go out with a bang, get a better name.
Unmute. So I'm playing the role of you there for a second there, Jason. I did actually go back to the article and pull the full name, which was so Last Call is only not it's only a fraction of the paragraph that Dodge has probably got a fender badge for, and that's the so I'll put it in the chat here. The Last Call Special Edition 2023 Dodge Charger King Daytona. Like, couldn't you just, like, to your point, couldn't you just say, hey, I got one of 457 King Daytonas.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, I had never heard King Daytona. I'm just Daytona Charger, right? Like, that's to your point. Like, we just need one. We don't need 8.
Yeah, I think to some degree you're absolutely right there. But I mean, they're trying to.
I mean, Last Call does have a ring to it. Like, it is kind of cool, but
yeah, it is, and it's. I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to be the marketing people in charge of the last of the good cars, as far as your muscle car packaging and stuff like that. Here's Dodge, closing down their muscle car segment per se, and Ford launches the brand new 2024 Mustang, last week, with a V8 and with bragging almost, what is it, 800 horsepower potentially, or 500 horsepower potentially, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think to some degree it's a sad day in automotive history when Dodge rolls that last gas powered horsepower muscle car off the assembly line, I think. Yeah,
but I also think much like the revival, right? Them coming back here in the kind of mid 2000s, maybe right around 2010. There'll probably be another revival 25 years from now, in a different way than we're used to, and we'll probably get excited again. So, that's changed. It's time. It's history.
So you guys have all heard about, Toyota and their new Corolla, the GR platform, 3-cylinder turbo, lots of horsepower. They're talking about pricing now with this 2023 Corolla GR, and I think that there's a huge stretch there compared to a base Corolla. And my question to you, Grant, is the $37,000 to $51,000 price tag on this Toyota GR Corolla, is it worth that much more than a base LE Corolla?
Well, as a reference point, before I go deep into my thoughts, do you know what a base Corolla goes for? Do you happen to know that sticker price or a point
Around 23,000.
23. So I think for me, it's very impressive what Toyota's obviously doing with the technology with this 3-cylinder. And I think, there's a lot of buzz on the internet of it. It's kind of it's another, I kind of almost equate it to the Mercury Marauder in the early 2000s, right? Like the only rear wheel drive V8 platform that people are excited, like Ford had the Mustang, Chevy had the Camaro, and that was it. The Marauder, like cool car now, like when we look back, but is like, you were just so desperate for something else. And so I think the Toyota fan base, like they relaunched the Supra, they had some other performance things. This was like another one of those wet the palate with another performance option kind of car. But at that price point, as you mentioned, I look at it and think, well, so who's your target demographic? Like who's shelling out $54,000 for, at the end of the day, it's still a Corolla. Performance one, sure, cool and fast, but who really is your target demographic? And I think maybe that price point is pushing you out of success, because I don't know if they really know who the car is being built for.
Yeah, and one of the questions that I had when I saw that price tag, and the pricing surprisingly isn't that far off in Canadian dollars from what we pulled off this Car and Driver media release or whatever it was. But if you break down the dollars, you're a 50% more for the fun and excitement of this car. And at the end of the day, it's just a Toyota Corolla hatchback. Is the fun and the excitement and the power and the whatever, the smiles per gallon, as they always say, is it worth $13,000 more than a base Corolla? That's kind of where it gets you. And I think if you're looking for that target demographic, is it almost 50-year-old guys like me? Is it 25-year-old kids just out of college? I don't know. I've not driven one yet. I probably never will get to drive one. But at the end of the day, I think if I drove it, I may say, yeah, $13,000. Yeah, I might go for that.
Well, maybe another way to look at it is like, it literally took $13,000 to make a Corolla cool, right?
Well, and they never were really. Corollas were, they were tried and true. That 1.8 that they always had, the 4-cylinder, it was gutless, but it was durable. It was a bulletproof drivetrain. Unless you got them with the standard transmissions tended to blow up. But at the end of the day, I look at it to say, there's got to be a specific certain someone. I know they're not making a huge production of these, but there's got to be a certain someone who's willing to pay that kind of money for such a small, insignificant, and maybe they're going to prove me wrong when I say insignificant, but a small, insignificant car in that big hot hatch car market.
Well, and I'll be honest, I when Ford basically announced we're just going to build trucks, more or less, right? Like in Mustangs, trucks and Mustangs and Broncos. Are they pumping out Focus STIs anymore, or are they done with those? Or
I think they're done with all their car market.
Yeah, that's what I think that's a more comparable package, right? And those things weren't going for $54,000. Like I feel like that's the target demographics. Whoever's buying the STI or the ST or whatever, ST, yeah, STI is not, that's super. Anyway, you get the point. But that kind of concludes, like, so Jason and I plucked 3 topics for each other. This is our new format. I've had a lot of fun with it. We're not going to shut the show down because we're out of topics, but I'd be curious to get from the chat their feedback, what they thought about this exchange, this back and forth, lobbing some topics. And if you liked it, Jason and I are going to basically fine tune our skills on this, but looks like we're going to need to pluck more than 3 topics.
Well, especially if we're going to fill a full segment or a full show, like maybe it is just a segment that takes up the first, 20 minutes of the show. And then as we kind of ease out of that, we kind of go into some of the different topics that we have. One thing I like, and one thing that John and I kind of generally try to do is, if we're going to choose a specific topic to talk about, we want to be on different sides of that topic, whether we believe it or not. We want to be able to rebuke one fact over another. So if I say I like this about it, then you can say why you don't. There's got to be that back and forth, because if people just sit there and see us, agree with everything that the columnists are saying, it's going to be a pretty boring show. So I think the idea is that we find topics and find news articles, and we find things that we want to talk about that you guys are going to kind of get in there and have opinions on. But that's the big part of it. If we're going to go through the little bit of extra time it takes to prep for these type of back and forth, then it would be nice to have your guys' input to say whether or not you want to see that. And I mean, yeah, it's nice to have guests, and we will likely continue to have guests, but we may bring our guests in on this type of topic and this type of conversation moving forward in season 9. We haven't talked to the network yet to see if they're going to accept us for a season 9, but things are looking good. We've pitched it. They seem to think that we've still got enough steam left in our engines here to keep us going for another 18 episodes in season 9. Grant, what do you think?
Yeah, no, I had a lot of fun with it, and I know what you're saying. Like, I guess for entertainment value, it does. I mean, pardon the interruption, is what we modeled this off of, and that's what they do. They make sure they're on opposite sides, but I just don't like it when it's not genuine, right? Like, if you're forcing to be on an opposite side. Sure, if you guys have been following Jason and I for a long time, generally speaking, we like a lot of the same stuff, so maybe it's gonna be hard, but so maybe we can just try to sort out and find one topic a week or something that we know, like, oh yeah, we're definitely on different sides. But I guess I'd open up to the chat too, if they have a topic they want to hear us go back and forth on, like, throw one in there. But
well, I do see a question there from Mexican Spec. He's asking, why do we limit this to 1 hour instead of going until people are done talking? One of the things that we find, or that we talked about how we agree on certain things. One of the things that we found that doesn't tend to be very entertaining is if you don't have a little bit of a structure and a little bit of a time frame in a show, people will come in, they won't stay very long, and they're gone. If they know that you're only on for an hour, they might be more apt to stay and listen and then go find another show that they can pop in and out of somewhere else. I like having, when we first started doing this, we were pretty much limited ourselves to like a half hour.
Yeah.
And as we kind of progressed, we realized the importance of good conversation. And if the chat is busy and there's lots in there, we'll try and keep going as long as we can. The problem is that if we go for 2 or 3 hours, which neither of us really have the need, want, or the time for, you can burn yourself out very quickly doing 2 or 3 hour live streams. We've been a part of some of them in the past. They're just, I don't find them very.
Well, I'll interject here and challenge you, Mexican Spec, or anybody out there watching, listening in the chat, whatever. Like, we've all gone to YouTube to try to figure out how to fix something, and inevitably there's some guys like, well, now over here, here's what we're gonna take this thing. Like, dude, just show me. Like, just show me. And like, you end up scrubbing the video anyway, and we all see it in our own analytics. Like, I'm guilty of it. I talk too much. I just, generally speaking, it's really hard to be entertaining for a long period of time and hold people's interest. And so that's why Jason and I never made it a point to just talk for the sake of blabbing on.
Yeah, because we could We could do that, but why not take all that hot air that each of us may have and put it to good use into a specific purposeful topic of conversation? That's kind of what we're trying to do with this type of format that we showed you tonight. Is, each of us seem to have lots to say about certain topics. We want to get your guys' side of those topics in the chat. We want to kind of provoke you guys talking to each other, talking to us, asking us questions, having your own opinions, and at the end of the day, whatever we're talking about, yeah, sure, we can go on for hours, but we want to make it purposeful. We want to make it productive.
So Papillon Cycles asks, what do you guys think will be the new trend in hot rodding if internal engines are tough to make legal?
My thoughts on that, and again, we've been talking about it for the last 6 episodes about electric and all that stuff. I'm not 100% sold that electric is going to be the only thing acceptable in the future. I think there's going to be hybrid technologies that will become available that will be accepted, not just a sole internal combustion engine. If it's got 4 wheels, if it's got 2 wheels, if it's got 1 wheel, I don't know. And there's 2 of them. John and I talked about this once upon a time. All of a sudden, you've got 2 guys who want to make sure theirs is faster than the others. So will the opportunity be there to hot rod electric vehicles? Well, unfortunately, by the sounds of things, yeah, it might be the only option that we have. But I think that it will be a trend. There will be an option to buy motors, put them in specific vehicles, and make them work electrically or hybridly somehow. Yeah, hot rodding will always be around no matter what is powering these vehicles.
So I did want to go back to, and I want to touch on this one because I think this is very interesting as well, but there's some good comments in the chat that I'd be remiss if I didn't share these right now. And this kind of sisters with what Mexican Spec was asking about a second ago. But Half-Assed Garage says, have a show where you're both completely wasted. That would be entertaining. Stick around for 2 more weeks.
2 weeks.
You'll get a 2-hour special with these 2 guys. Maybe a few beers in. So there's that. And then Everything's Broken Garage said his response to this question was underground dirty diesel hot rod racing Mad Max meets Fast and the Furious. And for me, what I think the trend is going to be in hot rodding, well, I think the trend, I guess, depends. The term hot rodding is probably relative. It's like we had a show about this. The term rat rod is the most overused word on a Craigslist ad, right? Like it means something to a billion different people. Hot rodding's probably the same. When I think hot rodding, I do think mostly like, okay, what shows up in Hot Rod Magazine? And honestly, if they stop, like, internal combustion motors are grandfathered in, they're not going to just outlaw the ones that exist. And I just think there's going to be a resurgence in like people buying old stuff. And so really nothing's going to change. It's hot rodders buying things that are 20 years old and doing what we've been doing for forever. Like, so it might be one of those things. I always joked, like when I'm 60 to 80, I may have to get a permit to go buy X amount of gallons of gas to drive my car around. And I might only get to drive it like once a month or whatever, instead of every day if I feel like it. Like, but I'm not afraid of the hobby or that going away ever in my lifetime.
Yeah. And like, if we look back at, what's offered for hot rodding today in 2022, there's people out there still driving cars from the 60s and 50s and 40s with original engines in them, because those parts, albeit getting harder and harder to come by, the parts are still around. Excuse me. As things start progressing to where, internal combustion engines become a thing of the past, all of a sudden, those engines aren't going to go away. The parts are going to be harder and harder to come by, and the aftermarket may be producing less and less of it. So there'll be lots out there, and I think that, there's going to be, like John, yeah. So there's going to be hot rod, recycling going on, and there's going to be a lot of people out there who are going to hoard their small block Ford 4.6 liter modular engines. Full circle. See, so at the end of the day, it'll happen, and Mexican flathead engine will run forever on baguette. Exactly. So there's those engines, as long as people can find parts for them, they're still going to run them. And like Grant said, there may come a time where, it might be $20, $50 a gallon to buy fuel, and you might need a permit to buy it. But at the end of the day, you'll still be able to get in and have that hot rod cruise or that drive-in or car show or whatever it happens to be. It's just going to cost you a lot more.
Well, and I also think about what we just came out of, the work from home phenomenon. We all proved that it can work. And honestly, so my daily commute's 30 minutes. Like, if the new norm was just work from home and then I only get out and drive, there you go, get out and drive podcast, once a week, and it's more about driving for leisure's sake, or going and getting the groceries and things like that, going out for that Sunday drive, like, is that really a bad life? It's what, like what am I doing here, guzzling all this gas 5 days a week?
Well, it's funny because I heard, or I shouldn't say I heard, I had a conversation with a fellow the other day, and actually last week, that, why are electric vehicles not giving us the range that we expect that a gas-powered one would? And I think there's a certain causality for that, and that is, I think the percentage was like 44% of the entire population only drives their vehicle this much, and you're expecting it to give us a range of this much. So if you build a car that only has a range of 250, 300 miles, you're appealing that vehicle to a larger percentage of the population who doesn't need it to do long haul travel across country. Right? Yeah. Will it be inconvenient, or not as convenient, I should say, to travel from New York to LA with an electric vehicle because you got to stop every 300 miles to charge for 7 or 8 hours? Yeah, it will be. But those cars that people want to do that might be available in the future. But a large percentage, a majority of the people who are buying electric cars are simply commuting.
Yeah, right? No doubt. Regardless, there has to be a culture change of some sort. And a coworker of mine, she just got back from her honeymoon in Charleston, South Carolina, and they rented a Tesla. And she was all geeked out about, she's a Gen Z, she's all geeked out about the experience and was looking forward to it. And her response, or her her review of it after a week, she's like, honestly, I'm done with it. Like, that was like having to drive clear across town, because in Charleston, wherever they were staying, compared to where the charging stations were on the other side of town. She's like, I spent so much time in a parking lot waiting for an hour for the thing to charge back up. And we're so used to, how long do you spend at a gas pump, right? Like 3 minutes maybe. And so regardless, whatever happens, there's going to be a culture change of sorts.
And Ryan says, unless you live on a sparsely populated island in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Yeah, I have a saying. There's where I live. There are some islands, and people are always using the excuse, "Oh, it just takes me so long to get here because of the ferry or because of the drive." Folks, you choose to live where you live, and if you live on an island that you're dependent on an 1.5-hour ferry ride or a 7-hour ferry ride to get to civilization,
comes with the territory.
You choose to live there. But yeah, I think, again, we touched on it this week. Let's put a period, or let's put a pin in it, on the whole electric topic, because we do, and we can talk about it for a whole.
Get there every time.
Really wanted to. We get there, but we got to find a spot to put a pin in it.
We need to put that conversation at a charging station and just leave it for an hour. That's what.
Right. Okay, I got to plug in, so we got time to talk. I mean.
So Jason, let's talk. What's coming up on Old Car Guy? I know you did a premiere yesterday with the part 3 of the town car saga, but is it more town car coming up, or what's due up on Old Car Guy?
No, the parts for the town car won't be here till Monday. See, when you live in Canada and you order Rock Auto parts, you don't get shit overnight. Unfortunately, you get it it takes 3 or 4 days. So I won't have it for the weekend. I think at this point, I ordered everything that I needed: timing belt, tensioners, guides, head gaskets, all that stuff to put it back together. And I could probably have that thing back together and likely running in a day, in a good probably 4 or 5 hour work day. Getting to the point that I'm at right now, I've been doing it for an hour or two at night over a couple, 3 or 4 days. So it's hard to put a full video together. But that video went up last night. If you guys haven't checked it out, it's part 3. Pretty entertaining. I did try a couple of different editing techniques that I felt were very effective. I really enjoyed kind of putting that together. And one thing that somebody told me a long time ago that I just had a hard time with was just press record and let it go. When you're editing, you're going through 20, 30, 40 minutes of video at a time. But it all came together at the end for a nice, I think it was right around a 15-minute video last night with a few different techniques, and, just me talking to myself and making a fool of myself and grunting and groaning and red faced and everything. So it was a fun little video to put together. I didn't realize how fun it was until I was editing it. So if you guys haven't seen it yet, and again, it's a video. The first one is up over 18,000 views right now, which is amazing. It's only been up for 2.5 weeks. And this one is, so far, the analytics are telling me it's in the #1 video in views over my 28-day period. So it's on course to be a decent video as well. So I hope you guys get out and check that out. Yeah, Will R was there. There's a few guys that are in the chat was there. Ryan was there. I had fun with it. It's great. The next video, I don't even know what I'm doing yet. I don't think it's going to be the Lincoln video. I think we're going to kind of part away from that for a little bit. We've got a couple of things to do on Dale the Truck, and see what we can do before the bad weather gets here and get another video up. We need more Yugo. Yes, absolutely. I've got this one guy that comments in every single video, every TikTok, every short, every Instagram. His name is Joe Doucette, and he's like, I want more Toy Yugo or Yugoda or whatever you're going to call it. And it's like, look, man, I promise it's going to happen.
Coming.
So Grant, what do we got? I know you've been working away, and look, you showed me that door panel. You posted that door panel on Instagram today, and I'm like, wow! If Pontiac had only done that from the factory, maybe these cars would still be around. But that looked really good. So tell us a little bit about what we got coming up.
Yeah, well, thanks. Well, first off, I can super relate to what you just talked about. This like 1 hours, 2 hours a night kind of thing. Last night it was 3 hours of my time reassembling the door panel and putting it back together. I bought new clips and all that stuff. So yeah, I do plan on doing just an update. It's been way too long since I did a long form video. And to your point, Jason, I thought extra hard about, okay, what kind of clips can I get now? I'm not like actively shooting a video for the video, but it's like get clips while I'm working on it, use it as B-roll. And how can I organize this? So there will be an interior update, and yeah, it's more interior refinishing, but I've got basically all the parts that I really need. I've got headliner material now. I've got custom speaker grills made for the package tray. So things should start coming together pretty quickly here coming soon. The goal is to get all that stuff done, and then it's time to yank the dash off and do that. That's going to be kind of another series. But yeah, look for an interior update on Lori G Pre, my 1979 Grand Prix.
Ryan has asked of you and me, I guess, if we'll be working on one of my projects while you're here. If I can convince Grant to stick around a little longer than just a few hours, then yes, maybe. But I know that they do have a timetable that they want to try and keep and try and get a lot of sightseeing and stuff like that in. So we may try and put something together, work on something that he's actually here, kind of hands-on, even if we have to create something for the sake of putting a video. Maybe we'll go out and we'll have the Lincoln running by them. Maybe we'll go smoke the tires off in Mexico somewhere, have a little bit of fun with that or something. But anyway, yeah, it's tough. I wish Grant was sticking around for 3 or 4 days. We could really kind of put something together and do some projects. But I understand they're the ones on vacation, not me. And he's got his wife with him as well. So, we don't want to be, tying up all of his time when she could certainly be, enjoying the sights that we have around here. So Yeah, it's all about, making use of the time that they have here. So it's going to be, we are going to do dinner. We're going to have a live show, and yep, we're gonna have a live show. We're gonna have a few
Yep.
drinks. We're gonna be setting up the camera, and if you guys don't know, I'm gonna just kind of turn the camera around here. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll know that I've got a pool table now. I inherited that from my father-in-law, and he's still alive, by the way. He didn't die, but he just sold his house and had to get rid of it. And he's like in his upper 70s. He's like, I'm not moving that table again. So we had to tear it apart and put it back together. So maybe we'll set the camera up so that we'll shoot some pool, and we'll be able to see, what's going on in the chat and this and that, and have a good time.
Well, I just want to say thanks to Mexican Spec. He complimented me as well on the door panel, and it's been I have to admit, like, I've got a TikTok and a reel and all that stuff out there about, like, because this era of car is so ugly, it's like it's easy to take risks on. But honestly, I feel like I kind of won the lottery. The combo works like way better than I think I could have hoped it to, and the way the door panel turned out, the upper, so these G bodies are 2-part panels. It's really a bottom piece and a top piece, and they come out in 2 pieces. But I left the top the stock color because I was kind of in my head psychologically, I just could not get over, like, if I repainted that with I trust the SEM product. I think it's a good high quality product. But I'm just thinking, like, cruising in the summertime with windows down and you've got your greasy forearm just resting on it and people are leaning in with their greasy palms. Like, I just felt like I don't know if I could trust that finish holding up over time, that I would rather trust the factory 40-year-old finish at that point. And what do you know, like, dumb luck, it all makes a really good looking composition. So,
yeah, it helps to have the foresight to see it before you actually do it. I don't. Like, that's one of the reasons why with my Cordoba, I've had that car for years, since 95. And as close as I came to redoing the interior was spray painting everything with a vinyl black. Just it's all one color. The trim is where it needs to be, but in places it's coming off as well, but it's probably due to lack of prep. I think if you prep them right and you do it right, I think that those colors will last a long time. In fact, with the lack of prep that I did on that car with the vinyl paint, it still looks pretty good. So, and that's been probably 15 years since I sprayed it. So,
and I hate to say it this way, but I almost used a term that may have been offensive to you, Jason, but it only needs to look good before I sell it. But it needs to hold up well enough that it's just, I don't want to do a disingenuous, like, I have no issue with the padded armrests are actually like more of a vinyl. There's zero doubt in my mind that color change is going to hold up over time, but there's definitely some other spots that I'm like, I don't know how well this is going to.
Well, one thing you've got to keep in mind though too is that if you're going to daily drive this car for like 5 years, yeah, you've got to worry about wear and tear and the durability and stuff like that. This is not a car that you're going to daily drive for 5 years. It's a car that you're going to fix up, you're going to make it look cool, and you're likely going to flip. So the durability shouldn't be playing a factor.
Yeah.
Because chances are the job you do will look good for quite a while, because you're not, like I said, you're not going to be wearing and tearing on it.
Yeah, so. Spending, and that's why it's taking so long, is I am spending a ton of time on the prep work. It's like I washed the panel like 3 times over. So
yeah. Well, I mean, and it all falls back to, painting a car is 10% the paint job, right? And 90% the prep work done before the paint goes on. The paint's just the cover up. Yeah. So you got to, if you're doing a good job, there's no job worth doing unless you're doing it right. So I think you're taking those steps into play too. So next week, guys, because this is a collaborative effort for the CarrGuy and SIXFAN show, next week the show is going to be back on my channel, Old CarrGuy, and as far as I know, nobody has backed out yet. we've got Junkyard Diggs and Junkyard Mook likely joining us for a second interview or chat or whatever we want to call it. And we're pretty excited to have them back on the channel. They're pretty good to us. They know where they came from. They started off very small, just like we are, and they're more than happy to join us again. So we'll touch base with Kevin early in the week. Make sure that he's still on board. Junkyard Diggs will be on the CarrGuy and SIXFAN show next week on my YouTube channel.
Yeah, Kevin and Mook, they're both super genuine people, so they're really looking forward to them. But Jason, why don't we just end it here, and I'll let you close this out.
Okay, so keep in mind, guys, because the CarrGuy and SIXFAN show is powered by the Get Out and Drive podcast. If you're looking for more great automotive content, and talk content in a podcast format, check out the Get Out and Drive podcast with myself and John Custom Car Nerd Meyer. He is in the chat right now as Get Out and Drive, so make sure you follow us over to getoutanddrive.com, and you can get everything there is to know about the Get Out and Drive podcast. We hope that you join us for National Get Out and Drive Day on October 2nd. And again, my YouTube channel next week for Junkyard Diggs, Junkyard Mook. Great interview. Stay focused on the windshield, not the rear view mirror. Thanks, guys, for joining us on this CarrGuy and SIXFAN show. We will see you next week.